time out of your busy schedule to listen into our quarterly webinar as part of our initiative this year to reach out to our clients more and give them more information about everything new and exciting at AssetBook. We've decided to reinitiate these quarterly webinars, and it looks like from the attendance it's pretty popular, at least so far, so pretty excited about that. And really just want to fill you in on everything going on. We don't have an opportunity to talk to you all that often, and so today what we're going to do is we're going to do a brief company update. We're going to do a development update, let you know what's going on in that department. We're going to do a few radar best practices, and then we're also going to give some guidance for quarter end. So that's going to be the discussion points for today. Also, there will be an opportunity to type in some questions, and we'll try to get to as many of these as possible in the time that we have allotted here. I know everybody's busy, but we will. If we don't get to your question, I just wanted to mention that we can go ahead and we can absolutely email you the responses to those questions. So, so here is our discussion points now that I'm sharing my screen. So again, thank you everybody. Let's just dive right in here. So here's a brief company update. So what I'm most excited about from a training and user education standpoint is going to be our second annual AssetBook Power Up conference that's coming this summer. And it's going to be a 3-day conference, really 2.5. That's going to be from August 24th through the 26th. That's a Wednesday through a Friday. And that's going to be at Rocky Gap, which is a really beautiful resort that's nestled in the western mountains of Maryland. It's a little bit of a drive from the nearest airport, but based on what everybody told us last year, they felt it was worth the drive. And we had some, really good learning last year. Everybody gave very, very positive feedback, and the goal of this conference is really to send you home with a full knowledge of this product, which the Radar product and also the InvestorView client portal, so you can really become a power user. So we also have a lot of fun. Had some social events. We brought everybody up here to our office. It's about a 40-minute drive from Rocky Gap up here to Deep Creek Lake, Maryland, and had a social event where we had some karaoke and some joke telling, and just really had a really nice time. And so please save the date, and just in case, we'd really love to have you. And I think that you'll really walk away with just some valuable information on how to really maximize the use of this product. It really is a big product, and we have a lot of good information for you. So secondly, I just want to fill you in on the company. We've been adding new firms and obviously need to support those firms. So we have basically expanded our development team, our internal development team here, with the addition of Joel Park, who I'm super excited about having him here. I've known Joel for 25 years. He if any of you know Ken Park, this is Ken's little brother, and Joel has been working in this industry along with Ken and I for over 20 years, it seems like, going all the way back to our start at DB Cams. And he actually did a stint at Advent for a while as well, and we were finally able to win him over, and he's doing some great things as far as on the development front. And then also, we've added a couple of people to our data specialist team that I'm also very excited about. Corey Daig has actually been working for AssetBook for a couple of years now on our import team, and when the position opened up, he applied, and so we brought him in to help with support and data administration. So happy to have him on the team. And also Melinda Durst comes to us, had some experience working at Morningstar. I'm not sure the number of years, but I think 5 or 6 years at least. And so she comes pretty much ready to hit the ground running, and they're going to be there to help you with questions and any support needs that you have. So moving right along. So on the development front, this is the most important milestone that I think I can tell you about that we have, finished up on, you know, this past beginning of the year. I know that you all know about it, and I know that we had a little bit of a rocky road, but it was quite an endeavor for us. We estimated over 1,000 hours in preparation time, and then about another 500 hours in actual deployment implementation, and then, you know, more hours in just tweaking the system. Still kind of doing that a little bit, but why do we do it? Microsoft Azure is Microsoft's cloud, and so we have what's called a private cloud, and we did it for two main reasons: security and speed, you know, performance of all of our systems. And that has to do not only with the performance of the system as you use it, but also our abilities to be able to import data quicker and be ready earlier in the morning, as far as having everything in and reconciled from a data standpoint. So a couple of notes here. We had a third party do penetration testing on the network, on the cloud, meaning basically this company of basically hackers would try to hack into the network and try to penetrate the network, and that ended up successful. Didn't have any issues at all there, so I'm excited about that. We've also set up a machine or server specifically in the network that does vulnerability scanning, meaning it scans for potential vulnerable aspects or open holes that, you know, if somebody was trying to hack into us, so we could immediately be notified when something like that happens. And, you know, it's just really important, as you know, with all the information that we have on this system, that it remains secure. So that was the big emphasis, really important move, and I appreciate all of your patience in all that process. I know that, you know, we had some reporting issues, and, you know, we did actually introduce a new feature from a reporting standpoint also on the development front, in which allows you to actually kick off a report batch and then close your browser. You can go home and you'll get an email with a link to that report, and that's another important development improvement that we've made. But the biggest thing about the Azure cloud is security, 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 and I just want to make sure that everybody knows how relevant and important that is to all of us here at AssetBook. And hopefully you've noticed some speed improvement, and that's only going to get better because this particular environment allows us to be able to be some elasticity in terms of scaling. So as we add databases, add new firms, we add new machines to the environment, and everybody can continue to have as good as speed as possible with a product like this. Now, a little bit about InvestorView. Many of you know, I've spoken with many of you about InvestorView, our client portal. We're super excited about the platform, and I personally walked you through, many of you through the configuration and just the setup and implementation of this portal, and it's absolutely ready for prime time. It took a little while to get off the ground, just like everything else, but it is up and running. We have lots of users that are using it successfully. They are deploying and uploading their quarterly reports to the portal, and they are also, some of them have just stopped sending PDF reports altogether and have used the tool set in InvestorView, which actually has the interactive statement that is a nice replacement to your PDF report. So as we grow and as that gets more and more flexible, I think that sometime in the near future, you know, maybe 3 to 5 years, I think the whole idea of a paper report is going to be, you know, really just limited to those folks that refuse, the investors out there that refuse to get an email account. But last we checked, we're somewhere between 75 and 80% folks out there have an email address and are eligible for the portal. New development here for those of you that are on the portal, we now offer benchmarks in InvestorView. So what I wanted to do is just take a minute and show that to you, how you can actually find that. And okay, so switching screens here to the InvestorView product. I'm logged in as an administrator into the portal, And I'm very quickly just going to show you how to turn on the benchmarking data in the portal. And so I'm just going to go here right from the admin console, and I'm going to go over here to settings under config. And then we're going to click over to visualizations, and this is the first step, is to go down here sort of toward the bottom, and fourth option from the top is going to be show benchmark indices. So you have to check that button, otherwise they won't show up. And then secondly, under the advanced tab, it's also important from a data loading standpoint that we click this option all the way to the bottom, load benchmark data, and then update those, click the update button down here at the bottom. And then that way, if we go back here to our home page, let me show you what that looks like in the portal. Okay, I'm just going to click on myself here as a client. Now we're going to be looking at the client view. Okay, so this is Investor View if anybody hasn't seen it yet. This is what your clients would see when they log into the system. And if I have the performance, and you need to have the performance headline turned on, these buttons are headlines. If I click a headline, the performance headline, what you're going to see is it's going to bring some information up over to the right, which is going to display the same benchmarks that you have assigned to your client, your household record over in Radar. So it comes, you know, in the daily export and import from Radar into this portal. The benchmarking data just goes with it. So cool little feature. It's definitely going to get better and better as we go in terms of, you know, Investor View constantly. These guys are making enhancements to this portal, making it better, more friendly based on feedback that we get from our clients. So it already is very, very friendly, but just make it more rich in features. And for any of you that don't have the portal, this is, you know, Radar users are eligible for the portal, just so you know. And you just need to give us a call, let us know that you'd like to be able to get set up with it, and we'll get you set up with it. Real easy to do. You do need Radar for the portal, though, because it uses all of the performance data especially, but really requires the Radar performance engine and the daily intervals to be able to properly export all that information. So that's a little bit about Investor View. And we're going to switch back. Okay, rolling right along here. So I want to talk a little bit about some best practices, and we're going to get into Radar and actually do a little bit of training with you. And what I like to do is when I have an opportunity to get in front of our users is to try to hit some of the areas that I get on a very regular basis. As you know, I talk to a lot of you on a very regular basis, and I just get a lot of questions. And one of the things that we notice that there's confusion about out there in our user base is the best browser to use for our system, okay? And just so it's crystal clear, Radar and Classic, both of these versions, Internet Explorer is the browser of choice. Our products, okay, Radar and Classic, not Investor View, okay? Radar and Classic are built on Microsoft technology that's everywhere from the database to the application layer, and so it's going to play best with Internet Explorer. And I know some of you have had speed issues with Internet Explorer, and I think with the newer versions of Internet Explorer, we've seen really no problems there. So as long as you're using a current version of Explorer and you don't have any firewall issues, that's another thing that we've run into. So if you try Internet Explorer on either of these versions and it just seems like it's really slow, rather than just, you know, going right to Firefox, which the user experience isn't optimized, you know, check out your firewall, have your IT person, you know, take a look and make sure that we, you know, there's nothing there preventing. I've also seen antivirus programs, you know, prevent, especially in the Classic version, prevent it and cause speed issues. So now Investor View, on the other hand, okay, Investor View is written by a third party, and they actually represent that Chrome is the best browser to use. It doesn't mean that the other browsers won't work, but we have had situations where certain options and things that you would normally see in Chrome just don't seem to show up like in Internet Explorer. So my advice here is that if you're doing any configuration or if you're making a recommendation to your clients as far as which browser would work the best, then Chrome is the best. But on the other hand, you know, they're going to use whatever they're going to use. So it's really more in the configuration. I think that it's more important that you use Chrome for Investor View. And that's just been our best experience. I just had a tech issue from a client that emailed me that said that they were trying to change a password and they couldn't see a button. And I asked them if they were using Chrome, and they were using Internet Explorer, and it, you know, it just basically, once I told her to use Chrome, she went in and that button was there. So I don't know exactly what the issue was, but that seemed to resolve it. So, so jot that down and remember that. And, you know, the next thing that I want to talk about is total return benchmarks. And we're going to do a quick poll on this right now, which is something that I'm kind of experimenting with the GoToWebinar software. So we're just kind of curious as to your awareness of total return benchmarks in the system. It's fairly new. We've always had a lot of trouble finding a good source to be able to get the adjusted prices for the total return benchmark. So Sarah, if you want to go ahead and send that poll, we'll give 30 seconds to answer that, and then we'll get some feedback hopefully toward the end of the call.
While our clients are taking this poll, we do have a couple questions about some other browsers that you may be able to answer. Do we have any, have we discussed anything related to Mac or Safari and also Edge? Okay, so you know, we know that Radar and Classic both work on Safari, and but we really have had some issues. So our recommended browser for Mac users is going to be Firefox. Okay, I should have put that in the notes here, but just so everybody knows, if you are using a Mac, Firefox is going to be the best option over Safari. Okay, and then in terms of Edge, Radar will not work on Edge, as far as I know. So you know that, and you know, just so everybody knows, we are working on this very aspect of the system. Ultimately, all of our systems will be able to be used on any browser or device, just like Investor View is. But for now, and the Silverlight infrastructure of Radar makes it impossible to use on Edge. Okay, so and that's true for Chrome as well. So really, Internet Explorer is the best choice for Radar, and if you're using a PC. If you're using a Mac, it's going to be Firefox for Radar. Okay. Okay, I think the poll is closed. So let me switch over and talk a little bit more about total return benchmarks. So, you know, we've had a lot of folks just ask about this, and so what I mean by total return is that it includes the income in the benchmark. Okay, so for some equity indexes, you know, it's not as important, but especially for bond indices and you know, balanced indices, it's you know, it's really important that if you really want to show a good representation, that we use the total return versions of the benchmark. So a couple things here. Okay, so back into Radar, I just want to point out a couple of things. So I am in the investment tab in Radar, okay, and what I am doing. So basically what I'm going to do is I want to be able to show you the variety of benchmarks that we have available on a total return basis. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter the column on index to start out with. Okay, and you notice you're not seeing any, and that's because you have to remember to uncheck the button that says hide zero value investments, because a benchmark in Radar is really just another investment. Of course, it's not going to have any value of shares. So if you try to bring them up and you don't see them, that's the reason why. Okay, so I'm going to take that a step further. So these are the various benchmarks that we provide. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm also going to filter the investment itself to include the word total return, because all of the total return benchmarks will have the words total return in there. Okay, so I'm doing that. So the filter down here for index, so these are the ones that are available. And one other good sort of signifier here is, excuse me, all of the symbols of these total return benchmarks have the squiggle or tilde in the symbol name. So, you can, if you're building a blended benchmark, for example, which, we're actually going to do that next, you can, be sure you have the right one. If you, number one, look for the word total return. Number two, look for the little tilde in the symbol. And then that's going to make sure the adjusted price. The adjusted price is the price that incorporates the income into the benchmark. Okay, so that is a little bit about, you see we're getting a pretty good library of these, I'm sure that there are more, but these are the ones that I think that are most commonly used. So the next thing I want to do is to take a minute and talk about just a blended benchmark, okay? Because this is one of these things that if you really don't know how to do it, or if you've never seen it done before, you're probably just not going to know that it's even possible in here. So I thought I'd just take a minute and show you how that works. And again, from the Investments tab, this time I'm going to click the button that says New Investment. And I'm going to give it a name that, maybe incorporates the fact that it is a blended benchmark. Okay, so I'm going to just put in something like, I could do blended stock and bond, something for like, to maybe represent a balanced portfolio. The symbol doesn't really matter as far as what you actually choose. And, I always like to put some kind of a symbol in there, but I always recommend, so you don't interfere with any marketable security, it's always a good idea to put some kind of a character in front of it. Our chosen one for benchmarks in the most cases is a caret, but you can actually pick whatever you want. So I'm going to call this something like caret blend, and I'm actually going to, because I'm going to create a just a 50-50 blend here. So I'll just put blend 50-50, and that's just going to represent that 50% stock, 50% bond. You could also do that in the name too, if that helps you locate the benchmark on pick lists and things like that a little bit easier. And then under the investment type, this is the most important thing you really need to know about it, is to actually click the blended index, because when you do that, you're going to see a very subtle link or button that shows up that says add index, okay? So you have to first pick the type, then you click add the index, and now we're ready to build our blended benchmark. And there's no real limit to the number of underlying benchmarks that you can actually include. So I'm just going to pick something like, let's do the S&P 500 total return, and we'll give it a percentage, use a whole percentage, a whole number if you will. You don't have to put a decimal. And then I'll just go to, let's use the lag here, the Barclays aggregate bond. Okay, we'll do the other 50%. We'll add that. Don't forget to click add, and make sure that you get to 100%. And that's it. I mean, it's that easy. You can see that it's really not very involved to be able to do that. And now that you've created this benchmark, it'll then become a part of your selection and your pick list when you go to make those assignments for households, accounts, and groups. So, and then this will also trickle over to investor view. So, a lot of folks like to be able to build their blended benchmarks based on their models. We even have some scripting that we can actually do to look at how your model is actually allocated in the various asset classes, and we can work with you to be able to create a data agent that syncs your benchmark, your blended benchmarks with your models. So that's something to think about. And if you're interested in that, then just let us know and we'll help you with that. So anyway, there is a blended benchmark for you. I'm going to save and close that. The next thing I want to do is I want to move on to the next sort of training topic or best practice, which is the Global Activity tab. And the Global Activity tab is something that I just feel like when I talk to people, they really, either they don't know about it or they haven't thought about it or thought of uses on how they may use that. Had a client a few weeks ago ask me about certain SEC filings and restrictions in terms of the number of buys and sells, for example, that, where they would have to actually file an SEC filing, either based on
the value of total buys and sells in any one date range, or even just a number of trades. And so this global activity tab is the answer, okay? And it's under the global tab and then activity. So basically, when you bring that back, you set a date range. And by the way, most advisors, what they're using this for is they just kind of want to know what happened yesterday, okay? What transactions came in yesterday to the system? And that's really a valuable way to be able to see, okay? And then if you want to filter, there's a lot of ways to filter the grid. So if I want to know, for example, for either yesterday or any date range, I want to see deposits, okay? I can just click the drop down right there, and it's going to show me all my deposits, including shares that came in. So we see some start values here, so they count as deposits. But if you just want another way to filter is actually to use this little filter button in the grid top, click deposit, and now we're just looking at cash deposits now. Okay, same thing can be happening if I want to switch it over to deposits and withdrawals. Okay, and I'll take my filter out here. I can do it right here. I can go down to the bottom and do it down here either way. So I say show me all. Now I'm looking at deposits and withdrawals. Okay, and then back to the example, I might need to widen my date range just a little bit because our sample data is getting a little bit dated here from a transaction standpoint. But if I did want to go back and look at those buys and sells, for example, it's going to work the same way. So I'm going to load them up, and this time let's show me all of my buys. Now, what I wanted to point out here, and again, it's one of the things that you just may not know until you know. These are buys. Notice I've got the cash buys and sells hidden, okay? And that's important to understand because they're just noise, right? They're just the other part of the actual transaction. So if I just want to count the number of buys that I had, I'm just going to go down here to the bottom and I'm going to right click right below, really any column for something like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to count. I'm going to get a count, and it's telling me that during this date range, I've got 229 buys. Another thing you can do is if you wanted to actually see what the value, how much was that? What it consists of as far as the dollar value, just go over here to the right, find the dollar, give it a sum. And, this little sub menu here, it just, again, if you don't know it's there, you just don't know. But, you got this sub menu on the footer, and you just have to click in the footer area. But you also have the sub menu available at the top as well. And, you have, in order to bring that up, you just have to right click up the sub menu. You've got some more options available, So, for example, if you want to add, show the column chooser, if there's a column that you're looking for and you just can't find it, maybe what you'd want to do is to show the column chooser, and that's going to show you any column that you don't have already picked. And there's just a few here, right? There's not too many to choose from because most of them are on this grid, as you can see. But if I take a column and I just drag it out into space, so you get the X, because I don't have many sectors here anyway, right? So I drop it. Notice it ends up over here in the column chooser. And then that way, if you ever decide, hey, I want to start using the objective field, then you can bring that back into the grid just by pulling it out of the column chooser and then dropping it back onto the grid, and you get the double arrows pointing up and down. So one other thing I just wanted to mention about, and I'm not going to get to, this is the kind of thing that we cover heavily in our users group meeting, but there's another layer of filtering that is possible, which is called, and there's two more actually. It's called the filter row. And when you pick filter row, I just wanted to point out that you can go in and type free-form text, and then it's going to search the field and bring in just what you're looking for. So if you were looking under the investment for, I see we've got some alliance, so I'll just start typing alliance. I think this should make sure I got it spelled right. So I won't take any further than that. I hit enter. Notice that it's going to bring up all of the underlying investments with that word in there. And you can use a wildcard too that's percentage. So if you're looking for something that is in the not here to the left, you have to put in a percentage. So if you're looking for high income, you would put in just a % sign first, and then it's going to locate those. So
It's even more robust that we're not going to take the time today to do much more with that, but get in there when you have time. You know, play with the filtering a little bit. This activity grid is a really good one to do it, but the reality of it is it works exactly the same for any grid whatsoever that you want to go in and play with. Investment grid, household grid, account grid. All of the filtering works exactly the same from grid to grid. So so that's the global activity grid, and thought it'd be worthwhile spending just a couple minutes on that. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is going to be something that probably most of you radar users know quite a bit about, but I just want to take a little bit of time on this, and that is the performance profile. And let's go ahead and go over here to households. Now, what I want to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is go back to the presentation, and I want to talk to you about what this is all about to begin with. Okay, so here's what the performance profile is all about, and it was really the best way that we could think of to allow some flexibility in what we refer to as our multi-performance period reports. And so we have several reports that are 3-period reports, okay, class and category, class and sector, and values and performance. Okay, so those 3 offer up to 3 performance periods, which the date ranges are completely flexible, okay? And then we've got our 5-period reports, which we only have 2, the overview, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, as well as the overview showing fees. And then finally, our 7-period reports, which we have 2, which are the index performance comparison reports, and then the performance snapshot reports. So those offer up to 7 distinct and separate date ranges on those reports. And by the way, the 7-period reports also control the periods on the performance tab. So what you actually code in there for those 7 periods, and I'm going to show that to you right now. But before I do, I just want to make one comment about this report right here, the class and category report. We have infrastructure to include broad-based categories as opposed to your more specific asset classes that are really more important to you as advisors for trading and rebalancing. From a reporting standpoint, sometimes it's nice to consolidate those classes into something a little more broad. Like, you know, you can take your large cap value, your large cap growth, and you know, maybe small cap value classes, you know, which are super important from trading and rebalancing, which class is king in radar, right? But from a reporting standpoint, you just want to call them U.S. equities. Okay, so we have this other layer called category, and right now we as administrators have to sort of assist you in building out those categories. So if it's something you're interested in, then all you need to do is just reach out to us and let us know. Okay, and we'll help you get that set up, and it just takes a few minutes so to put those rules in there. So let's jump back over to radar, and let me show you how this performance profile works in terms of defining these reports, okay? And I just want to make sure that everybody has a good understanding of it. Okay, so back over to radar. 2 ways to get to the performance profile. One, you can do it through an account or a household record by going right to the performance tab, which is what we're going to do it. But you can also hit this from under the administration tab, under the settings tab, and you'll see an option for the performance profile. But what you can see here, if you notice this tile and this tile, we call this the period returns, we call this the period returns chart, okay? So this is just a graphical representation of these numbers up above. So what you've got is, as I mentioned before, 7 different periods, and it's actually reading those periods from our performance profile under the 7 period option. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay. I'm going to go over here to Performance Profile, this button right here, and I'm going to edit the profile. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so this is the performance profile, and as I mentioned to you before, you know, some of the date ranges you can put in, they're canned, meaning you can just pick a period, and that makes it nice and easy. So if you know if you want it last calendar quarter, you just pick it. If you want to give it an alias, meaning if you actually want to be able to see this alias or this label, if you will, on the report, then type it in and make sure that you click Show Alias. If you if you don't want that, then just uncheck this box. Okay. The dates, same thing. If you have this check box, it's going to show the date range, the actual date range that you're seeing here. So everybody's a little different. Some advisors show both, some show one or the other. So it's completely up to you. I'd encourage you to be brief with your aliases so you don't run those together in charts and things like that. So what I did here is I set up a very simple year-over-year performance profile. So so we have last calendar quarter, last year, year before, 2013, 12, and 11. So that's 5 years of calendar performance each for those years. And then finally, I've got my since inception. Okay. Now, since we don't have a drop down for 2014, you've actually got to put in the date range, right? So, and that holds true for most annual periods. I think most of you are familiar with the kind of canned date ranges that we provide. But to get the specific date range, it's just right down here at the bottom. And then here's what I wanted to explain. So you have the 7-period reports. Okay, so if I want to show all 7 of these periods on those reports, I want to check all of these boxes. Say I don't want to show, it ultimately removes a couple of the periods, but if I don't want to show 2012 and 2011 on those reports, then I can just remove the check boxes. Okay, over here on the 5-period reports, the overviews, which periods do you want to show in that the upper left quadrant in terms of the date ranges. And any line graphs, by the way, will always take the beginning date of the earliest period, so in this case since inception, and it'll end with the latest date of any period. So that's the way that they're going to graph on these reports. And so notice, so if I decide that I want to have inception, but I don't want to have just gives it a lot of flexibility, but you can only have 5 here for those 5-period reports. And so the same thing on 3. So what I've told the system is on my 7 periods, these are the periods that I want on those specific reports that we just talked about. In the 5-period reports, these are the periods that I'm looking for, and then the couple available that are 3-period reports these are the date ranges that are going to show. And so it's not the most intuitive way to do it in the world. I definitely I guess I feel okay with it. It works, but it's the type of thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which is why I did. So that is the performance profile, and I think that there is one other thing I just wanted to say about that. If we get back to our presentation, which is I wanted to just make sure that you knew that, actually before I do, I want to make sure you knew that even if you wanted to create a different profile for each and every household, likely what you're going to have is you're going to have your most commonly used periods, performance periods, if you will, are going to be what we call the default. Okay, so whenever, most everybody's going to be set to the default profile. And then usually, especially if a firm is doing either monthly or quarterly reporting, they're going to be set to those quarter end dates, just kind of like what I did right here. All of my end dates are calendar end, if you notice, okay? Now, and most firms do, send reports out periodically. Not everybody. I do know some firms that actually are more about reporting when the client comes in. So in that case, you may want to make, if you don't do quarterly reporting, and you want to be able to make your default performance profile to be, rather than ending at the end of last quarter, if you want to be able to show them data that is good as yesterday, you just go in and you set up those date ranges accordingly, and then your default profile becomes the one that that you're using most of the time. And then that way, and then you're just ad hoc, for whatever reason that you like, if you want to create one new. So let me go back to my other screen here. Okay, so you can create as many as you need. There's no limit at all. You can be customized for individual household accounts or account groups, which I just want to point out that not everybody has account groups. We usually do that by request. So an account group is a group of accounts. It's just sort of another layer between households and accounts. So it has to happen inside of a household. But if you're doing, say, goal-based planning, or if you're modeling in that way where you have specific goals, then you might want to consider groups, because there are reports available at that level, and also rebalancing available and alerts as well. So
is I hope I didn't bore anybody with that, but I felt like it was important to be able to add some clarity there. Again, get a lot of questions in that area. So that is the tutorial section of our webinar for today. So let's just keep on rolling through, and let's talk a little bit about the quarter that we're about to close out here. The quarter ends, as you know, a week from Thursday, and on 3/31. And so on Friday, we're going to be very diligently importing and reconciling. Everybody probably knows, but if you're using DST and or buy all accounts, those are always going to lag. So there's probably not much chance we can, do any billing on those accounts at all until the following Monday or Tuesday, depending, when buy all accounts and DST does their job to get us the updated pricing and month-end transactions and reconciliation files. So assuming the files are on time, we'll get the high priority billings done on 4/1. I don't, usually sometimes it'll lag into the afternoon. It just depends on, how our custodians do with delivering the data. We will keep you up to date with constant contacts as far as that's concerned. And then the numbers, I feel very strongly that by Tuesday 4 or 5 should be in and reconciled. If you have any questions about that, whether anything, if we're not ready, I'll make an attempt to reach out to you and let you know that, hey, your numbers are not quite ready for reporting. So that is best guidance in terms of the quarter end. One other thing I wanted to mention, we are closed along with the market on this Friday, March 25th. So, just want to wish everybody a happy Easter, and, we're going to be enjoying some family time. Or if the weather holds, maybe even some outdoor activities. It's suddenly spring here in Western Maryland. So just as a reminder, nobody's going to be here to answer the phones on Friday, except possibly me. I may be here, but we'll see. I'm not sure I'll be answering the phone. But and then, so finally, that is sort of it for the content portion of the webinar. And I just want to thank everybody for attending it, and hope that everybody found it useful. And at this point, Sarah, is there any questions that have come in that we'd like to address?
We do have a couple questions. The first one would be about benchmarks. Do the benchmarks include reinvested dividends?
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do. So what we're doing is we're actually, just so everybody understands, this is kind of a revelation to us. We finally found that even through Yahoo, we're able to get an adjusted price, not for the actual benchmark itself, but for the equivalent ETF. Okay, so there is a caveat there with these total return benchmarks when we're using an ETF, and that is there is a limited amount of history that's going to be available for those. So just be aware that you kind of need to be aware of when the history of your benchmark starts. Otherwise, it's going to skew the result of the comparison. So, but the answer to your question is yes, all income is included in that adjusted price for those blends.
Okay, and also related to the total return benchmark, is it possible to add additional total return benchmarks to Radar?
It is, and what we need to do is looking to know what the benchmark is. We have to do it, okay? So through our administrative team has to do that. And what we need to know is what the benchmark is that you're looking for. We'll go and we'll try to find the benchmark itself on, like S&P, for example. Those go back much, much further because we're able to go right on to the S&P's website and get those prices. But but if there's not, we would want to know also the symbol of the equivalent ETF. So that's really what we would need to know, is let us know what the benchmark is that you're looking for and what the equivalent ETF is, and we can get that in there for you. We usually do those updates either once a week or sometimes every other week, depending on how many requests that we get. But the library is getting pretty big now. So.
Okay, and just one question about integrations. Are there any plans to integrate with eMoney?
Yeah, we definitely do. eMoney, as you know, with the acquisition has been kind of crazy as far as
establishing, their new CEO, and my understanding that actually did happen, and so it's been a little crazy for really them to do any work with us, but we absolutely have plans to do that in the near future. I don't have an exact date. We kind of need to reconnect with them, which I'm looking forward to do sometime in this next quarter. I would think that there's an excellent chance that we get that integration in before the end of the year, though.
Okay, we also have a couple other questions coming in about integrations, Naviplan and Juncture.
Juncture, we have actually made some strides with them, and I actually had a conversation with a client of ours that was like the 6th Juncture user, and we got Ken Golding's attention over there. So it's in the works, but very, very early in terms of Juncture. And what was the other one?
Naviplan.
Naviplan. I'd love to do it, and I know that a good friend of mine, Chad Blythe, is working over there now, and and based on demand. So the best way to get these integrations done is to do kind of more of a formal request that, gosh, I'd really like to have it, and just go ahead and send me an email, or send somebody on the sales team an email here, and we'll try to make some strides in adding those integrations.
Okay, last question we're going to answer is, will the conference be useful for people that went last year? Is there any new training that will be going on?
Yeah, I do think it would be useful for people that came last year, and I've spoken to a lot of folks that actually did come last year, and I know they did benefit a lot, but we are going to be adding more content. I think one of the changes that we're going to do this time around is going to be that we're going to have, at least in a couple of the sessions, an advanced versus a more beginner area. Okay, so we're gonna, the room is big, we've got enough room to do it, and so we'll basically end up with 2 trainers, and we're talking about similar content, but one is going to be for more novice users, and others are going to be more for folks that have been using the system for a while. And I think because of that, it's going to allow us to do even more robust training in every area of the system. So I would definitely think that it would be very beneficial even if you were here last year. That was our first time. Although I think everybody really walked away with a lot of knowledge. It never hurts to have a refresher course, and we are going to be teaching some new content as well. Okay, so once again, I hope that everybody found this useful. Looking forward to some feedback. We're going to do a very, very brief survey that you should receive at the conclusion of the webinar. And again, I appreciate you all so much, and we'll look forward to talking to everybody soon. So thanks again.